Alrighty, this is a video trying to explain how to do the graph for the second level 3 practice experiment where basically you're doing a pendulum. Here's the aim here and the background. The background comes with the formula. The two things in the aim of the length and the period are in the formula that we give you. So that gives a massive hint about how you're going to change one of the two things. In this case, we're going to be changing L, and we're going to be square rooting L before we make our graph. So here we go. Here's the data that we came up with. One of the tricks with Excel after you type it all in, especially if you're using the school laptops, is you can make the font larger. This will help when you have very small screens. So you can stretch out things. What I've done here is just typed in the data that some of the students have measured. The decimals don't always come out the same, so another little trick is you right click, you go to Format Cells, you go to Number, and you give it 2 decimal places. Now all of these numbers here have 2 decimal places. You can also center that. These here are the times for 10 circles. The times for 10 circles have the uncertainty of 0.2 seconds. If we just divided by 10, those would have a different uncertainty. So it's easier just to write down your raw measurements and say my raw measurements have an uncertainty of 0.2 seconds. Now, they don't all have the same decimal places. So if we highlight those, right click, Format Cells, Number, 2 decimal places. Now they all have, now they all have 2 decimal places. Okay, so here we go. Because of the formula supplied, here it is here. Because of the formula supplied, it tells us that t equals 2 pi square root of L on top of G. So that basically is a massive hint to take the square root of L. So what we can do is we can right click, then select Insert Column, and you have a new column. And you can just say square root L. The units of the square root of L are square root of meters. So you can say m to the power of 0.5, and we'll understand that you know that's the square root of meters. Equals, click on the number to the power of 0.5, and you have it. Now, again, Excel thinks you want way too many decimal places, so you select it, you right click, you format the cells, and you get it off of 15 decimal places, more to a manageable 3. Drag the corner, drop it down. Now you have all your square roots. We can center all that. There it is. What we also can do is, instead of doing the averages out here in column F and column G and all that we can just insert this. So on this side, we can have the average T in seconds. Now, the reason I'm doing this in column B and column C is so that they're next to each other, so that I can make the graph once I have all of these. Here we go, equals average, type it in, bracket, select the 3 ones you want, close the bracket. Now remember, these are 10 periods, so we need to divide by 10. There you go. So the average period is actually 0.8 seconds, not 8 seconds. Drag it down, there you go. So now we're ready to make our graph. If you select these 2 columns, the ones you want to make a graph, remember Excel will always take the left column and do the horizontal axis. So we insert scatter graph, that one. Boom, we have our graph. We can get rid of this ugly thing, we don't need it. Delete. Then we use the layout tab and we turn on the grid lines of the minor grid lines. There's one of them, and we turn on the vertical grid lines. There's the other. Then we give the axes titles. The horizontal axis title is the first column. It's the square root of L. So you type in square root of length. The units for this are meters to the power of 0.5. Okay? Now, vertical axis title, rotate it. This is just the average period, and that's the units of seconds. Okay, then you give it a title. I usually do above the chart, and you type in the average period of, you can even say pendulum, versus the square root of length. Big long title, okay? One thing you might also want to do is make your graph, grab the corner, make your graph as big as you can on the screen, okay? So that it's a lot easier to see what you're doing. Alright, so here we go. If you click on the dots, remember this is only an achieved graph so far because we haven't made error bars. But if you click on the dots, no matter what, you can add a trend line. Here it is here. You want the linear, you want to display the equation. You close. That's the little equation there. You can play around with this title so that you can drag the title across and then drag your formula up here. Go to the home button, make the font bigger so you can see the thing. Must change Y to T, that's on your vertical axis. Must change X to the square root of L, and that's how it looks in this typing, to the power of 0.5. So there's our formula, there's our line. This is ready to print for an achieved level graph. The second line you must draw is the error line, where you pick two of these points and you draw an error line. How that would be done is you go to the print option and you make sure it's in the landscape orientation, so it takes a whole page to print. And that's pretty much it. To draw a conclusion, you must explain the relationship between T and L. In this case, it's a square root relationship. You also must say that because of our dots being in a straight line, our experimental data, which is back here, all of this experimental data, we made the graph of these two things. That's experimental data. All of this experimental data matches the theoretical relationship that was given to you in the instructions right here. So that's the quick version for achieved. The next video should explain again how to hopefully quickly make error bars for merit.